Hello, everybody. We're doing the Q&A. We've been talking a lot about how this is going to become a podcast, and next week on Monday will be the first Talk Dad Does with a guest. Are we allowed to say more, Dad?
Yeah, go for it.
You go for it.
Hello, thanks for joining us. Yes, we're going to talk to a number of people, and it's the first two people we've talked to have been very easy and great fun because they're old friends. Steve Hackett and I had a good chat, which touched a lot on ideas and in Japan, actually Asia in general. And I talked with Dave McKean, who's a fantastic artist with an incredibly fluent calligraphic style. He works in lots of ways, but I particularly like his very free brush drawing. He also has made a number of movies. And I remember the first time I visited his studio, he had a giant piano in there. So he's a multi-talented person. I'm looking forward to that being broadcast.
I think probably a lot of people who'll be watching will know Steve Hackett very well and Dave McKean, but it might be nice to do little topper and tailors of introductions before, just in case anyone doesn't, so they can listen to the podcast or watch the video and pause it and look up some of the stuff, or be like, oh, that's where I know, I don't know, just in case, in case people who aren't familiar with, whether it's art or music or the writers that we invite can just get a little introduction.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good thought.
And I watched both of those, and they both just I was on the edge of tears. It was so lovely hearing you guys talk about the things that you did, and obviously there were so many points where I just wanted to jump in and be like, I know something about this. I'm gonna have to start getting involved if people aren't careful. And
Whoops, that crash was my microphone stand toppling over.
We did talk as well, didn't we, about a lot of the people that we've invited that we've got coming up have family members who they live with and work with in the same industry. So it might be nice to do a one-on-one with you, and then we do some family chats as well.
Yeah.
A really, really good way of not missing any of these. So what we're going to do is we're going to have it as a podcast, and we're going to set up a page on the website, but we're also going to be putting them here where we put these Q&As every Monday. So there'll be something every Monday, whether it's Dad talking to somebody or Dad and I talking. So to make sure you don't miss any, if you subscribe to the channel, and if you like it, that would be great too. If you like the videos and push like, that's awesome. But subscribe if you don't want to miss anything. And when it's a podcast, obviously, you'll get them automatically updated. Sorry, that was quite a long intro in. We've got the course starting on the 28th as well. So if you go to rogerdean.com and shop and you want to join the course, we're going to be posting a video with more information about that today as well.
Yes, particularly focusing on materials.
Yeah, and that was a great video anyway.
Which can be incredibly simple. Bottom line is a pencil and paper.
Yes, but it's something you get asked a lot, isn't it, about like what materials you use, what brushes, what paints. And as you say, you can make, if you can make a mark with it, you can get something done. But I think it's nice for people to know, just psychologically, if they're using the same thing.
Yeah, I will do that. I will have it all ready when you get home, and we'll do a little introduction to materials.
Do you know what? I thought the mic would help, but there is a delay, and it might be your brain, as Mum said, rather than sound.
You're a pair of hooligans.
I can't think what else it can be. We tried without the mic and with the mic.
Well, crack on. Let's see how it goes today.
Cracking on. Question 1. This
Go
is
for it.
Kaya Chan. Roger, when did you get diagnosed with dyslexia? I know it wasn't a very well-known condition until more recently. Before you had a name to it, did you worry about being different, weird? And she didn't write this, but stupid, because that's what your teacher said, isn't it?
Yes, yes, you're right. When I was at school, throughout my whole school life, they pretty much, there was no, I never heard the word dyslexic. And it was a challenge because I could do pretty much anything any other kid could do, except I was probably 9 before I could spell my name. And I remember my mother being very exasperated by teachers' reactions, and she decided she was going to teach me to read. And that was amazing. She did it one summer holiday. I don't know how long it took. It seemed to take forever, you know, me having to learn to read while my friends were outside playing. And once that happened, I became mad about books, and I read huge numbers to the extent that people used to say, you know, it's a nice day, put the book down, go out and play. I didn't really need a lot of encouraging in that, but I did get obsessed with books, and I read a lot, but not before I was 9. And even then, you know, I remember my English teacher looking at my work, and he said, "You write well, but your spelling is ridiculous. Don't try and correct your spelling." He said, they only assign 10% to your spelling. The rest is about composition, blah, 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 blah. This is for my O-level exams. And he said, ignore the spelling, just get on with it. But you've got a 10% hurdle to get over. So you've got to write really well. And then he looked at it and he said, maybe 20%. There would be an intuitive negative reaction to the spelling. So that was an interesting thing. And I was 15 then, so 14, I don't know. What I did know all along was that I was very good at some things. Maths, for example, and physics, I loved.
Your mum helped you with the maths too, didn't she?
Sorry?
Your mum
No.
helped you with the maths. Well, what she said that time you fell in the pond and she made you do, you had to go home to get changed, and you said, it's fine, I'll, you know, she said you weren't going to play, you were going to do some work. So she did maths with you. And then when you went back to school, you got further ahead than the other children, and the teacher said you must fall in the pond more often.
I don't remember that, but I do remember your grandmother telling you that story. And I thought, is that how it happened? But I can't remember. But I did read a book recently, which you gave me, called The Dyslexic Advantage. And it's a very interesting advantage. It helps you put, the brain is different with people with dyslexia. And it's the same with people with Asperger's, but it's different in an entirely different way. And one of the things you do very, very well is you make connections between unconnected things and unconnected ideas, and making connections very easily. So coming up with ideas, being creative, it's a huge advantage. And I have wondered, because you say you're not dyslexic because you can spell, but in all other respects, you behave like someone who's dyslexic.
I would say thank you, but also I don't know if I do, because I think I've picked up a bit of a sixth sense for picking out people I suspect are dyslexic. And we've talked about this before as well. It's much more difficult to tell here, I think, because of the language and how it's written. it's not a pattern-based thing, it's pictograms. So I think the same issues with dyslexia don't necessarily come up. But I think, like, with my friends who have dyslexia, which is quite a lot, because obviously a lot of my friends were artists, I can definitely see things that they have in common, and I think I can see those things because I don't have them in some ways. I think that's part of it. And part of it is that part of it, which I really envy, is a kind of being unboxable. I mean, I might be wrong, but one of the things I've noticed about a lot of my friends who have dyslexia is that because they sort of can't be dominated by rules and patterns of behavior as well, they tend to kind of make their own way with whatever they do, which is obviously great if you're a creative. But I think even if they hadn't been, there's this way of being which is sort of like, well, I can't fit in that box, so don't even bother trying to make me. And they just kind of make their own way in life. And I think that's something that I don't have. I think I'm very conscious and wary of the rules and very, very anxious to obey them in a way that I feel, I don't know, maybe that's not a dyslexic thing, but it just seems to be something that.
Yeah, we'll chat about that more.
Hmm.
I wouldn't agree with that, but there you go.
Okay.
Anyway.
Well, one of the things that reminded me of that I just heard the other day was, do you know the serial killer BTK?
No,
He
he
was,
wasn't someone I planned to talk to.
I don't even know if he's still alive, but I don't know that he was dyslexic, but he had very weird spelling issues. And he was one of those serial killers who was, an egomaniac and constantly writing to the police little jokes and clues and trying to create an identity for himself. And he'd do sort of really terrible, awful jokes, like write to the police on cereal boxes because he was a serial killer, and just really cringy things like that. But they published some of the things that he wrote. And one day his wife, who had absolutely no idea that she was married to this serial killer, said to him, it's really funny, I've been reading the news and the letters they publish of this serial killer. He writes just like you. And he spells words wrongly exactly the same way you do. And he sort of went, And that moment, it might have been over at that point. I think he was just sort of midway through at that stage. But if she just sort of followed that kind of thought.
I'm wondering.
Obviously.
I'm wondering if he would be dyslexic, because my experience of spelling mistakes is I don't get the word wrong consistently the same way, because that would be fixable. Every time I make a spelling mistake, it's in a new and extravagant way. And it's very often very simple words. And I not only don't spell them right, but sometimes I sit and stare at them when they are correct, and I simply don't recognize it. Just a squidge on the
I have the same experience reading your emails. But I have the same experience as well. Like, if someone asks me what the English word for something is, or like how you spell a word, or why it's spelled a certain way in English, and how does that make any sense? It really, I really go into this sort of mind swirl about it, and I'm just like, is that right? I don't know. And it's one of those things, like you were talking with Dave McKean, like it's one of those things that I suppose if you're not dyslexic, it's that centipede walking, you don't think about it. And then when someone stops you and says, but how do you spell weather, as in whether or not? And then you're like, huh? You just write it naturally, but then you're like, oh, is it this? And I make those mistakes sometimes where it's one of two spellings.
I'm sorry about that. We'll just ignore it.
Will we?
Behave. There you go.
So should we go on to the next one? Oh, well, Kai, we completely didn't answer that properly. You didn't. Kai said, did you worry about it? Did you worry about being different? Was that something?
Hang on.
Sorry, everybody.
I'll ignore that too. Did I worry about being different?
Before you
I
knew
didn't.
what it was, were you concerned?
I was concerned in the moment, you know, like when I was in the classroom, I had to write something, you know. I remember your mother made a joke once about her physics exam. She said, I got the first question right. And I said, what was that? She said, I had to put my name at the top of the paper. Well,
Question, Mum, not a question.
I wouldn't have got that right.
Oh, how am I alive?
Got everything else right, but I wouldn't have got that one right. And in the time I was doing that, yes, that was deeply frustrating and annoying. But outside of that context, it didn't bother me. I don't remember it bothering me. Amongst my friends, I never had any sense that they knew more than me about anything. You know, it just, outside of that context, it seemed my brain functioned perfectly normally. So in that moment, when I was writing my name at the top of a piece of paper, yeah, I thought I got some pretty good shots at it sometimes. Apparently not.
It's like when I see people writing my name or going to Starbucks and them asking what your name is and then writing it. I love that moment at the end of queuing up where I get my cup and seeing what they've had a go at.
I had a much more recent funny experience with that. I was in the middle of working on a very important project, and a record company wanted me to come to New York to sign 5,000 posters. And I said, I can't, I'm doing this other project, whatever it was. And they said, this is really important, it'll make a huge difference. They're going out to all these DJs. And I said, no, I can't do it. And they said, what if we flew you out on Concorde? And I said, interesting. And I said, but I still got to get back. Oh, no, we'd fly you back as well on Concorde. I said, oh, okay. So I come, I arrive in the evening, I sign 5,000 posters, and I catch the 9 o'clock flight out in the morning. Definitely. Okay, I'll do it. And I went out there and they did something very silly. They expected me to be on the same time zone as them. So I was signing these things and I signed a lot of them. And I said, okay, I'm going to go to sleep now. And they, no, you've only signed half. I said, yes, but I'm going to get up in the morning at my 8 o'clock, which would be your midnight or 1 o'clock, and I'll finish it. They couldn't believe I would, but I did, in fact. Apart from the fact, they didn't give me all the ones to sign. They gave most, but not all. So I still had to sit in their office very early in the morning and finish signing them. And I'd sign them, and they were sitting there with white cotton gloves. All I had to do was sign. They take it, and someone else would put it in front of me, sign. And one pile grew, and one pile was not growing very fast. There's maybe 20 or 30 things in it. And at the end, I teased them. I said, so is that little pile the ones you're going to keep for yourselves? And they said, oh, no. They're the ones where you made a spelling mistake. I said, how can I make a spelling mistake? I was signing it. They said, yeah, but sometimes you made a mistake. I said, I can't. I don't think how to spell my name. It's all muscle memory. You know, I don't think about it. I just do it. Anyway, they showed me a couple.
Do you remember what you'd got wrong?
Sorry?
You remember what you'd got wrong?
Well, they weren't really spelling mistakes. They were the letters becoming vague, you can say. I wouldn't accept they were spelling mistakes. Spelling mistake is when you think, what is the order of letters? And you can't get the order right. The signature isn't like that. It can get loose and vague, which they were. They were becoming a bit vague towards the end. Anyway, yes. It still affects me. I still, if I have to write something, I know I can do a good job of it, but I'm reluctant. And that is a memory of it being a humiliating and difficult task for me when I was a kid.
I
I
think
still do it.
that's the same for everything, isn't it? Like, even just very, very tiny things. If there was something someone picked you up on, even as just not being very good at, it can make you reluctant to do it forever.
Yeah.
I had
Although,
an experience today, but I can't remember what it was. There was something I had to do today, and because it was something that I'd done badly before, I really didn't want to do it. It was something I was totally capable of. I can't remember, but yeah, I guess everybody has those sort of trauma associations with certain things, I guess, particularly at school. I suppose for a lot of people, maybe that's where like fear of public speaking comes from, is some kind of situation at school where you said something silly or the teacher picked you up on something.
I do remember when I was in Hong Kong, and the school we went to there was pretty much a military school, in the sense it was children from whose parents were in the military, mostly army, but some navy and some air force. And I didn't do well in art there. My art teacher had an idea that I was not good at art. And I remember feeling not humiliated by that. Just, I felt the opposite. I felt she doesn't know what it is.
I feel like that's a very Dean quality, like at whatever age, whether you're like 75 or 8, to sort of face off criticism with the attitude of, who the hell do you think you are? Even like a child.
Well, it wasn't that. It could have been, but it wasn't. It
All of
was,
you and grandma's stories end in, and then I told them where to get off. And then I proved them wrong. And then they saw the error of their ways and how brilliant I am. And I'm not criticizing. I'm just like, why didn't I get some of that?
well, in my defense, it wasn't that. It was the thing we had to do was we were all given half a potato. And for weeks, while this potato dried and rotted, we had to carve it and make patterns in paper. And she had an incredibly clear idea about what the patterns had to be. And she never tested to see if we could draw or anything like that. It was just, if we made patterns as she dictated, and if we didn't, we weren't any good at it. And I didn't and wouldn't. And it didn't really bother me that I wasn't any good at it, although I did think I was. I came from there to Ashford Grammar School, and there I didn't do particularly well in art, even though they did support my idea of going to art school. I got my lowest pass mark in art. I got my highest pass marks, I think, in maths and physics. Even in English, I did better than in art.
Wow. Yeah, it's a really interesting thing, like teaching myself, thinking. So I had a student today, I'm going to show you a little picture. I won't show a picture of her, face or anything, but she's very kind of willful. And she's hilarious and very strong-minded, got a very clear sense of what she wants to do and how she's going to do it. Anyway, she became student leader recently, and I told her that she has to get some Doc Martens so she can keep all the plebs down once they revolt, because she will be a terrible dictator. So today she came into my lesson and we were both in our Doc Martens. And I thought, yes, welcome to the army, the sisterhood army. But it's really interesting teaching her, because the things that she says, I mean, obviously I'm of a completely different generation to you, and there's a couple in between us probably, but I reckon at all of these stages, like certain ways that she does things and things that she says, that she behaves, I can imagine one of my teachers really putting a stamp on that and just saying like, no, just get a grip, get yourself together, we're not doing that, this is what we're doing, and just flattening her. She could probably do with a bit of that, but so, you know, I'm sure it, you know, people of your generation would have had it much more so. And I just sort of thought that's such a fragile thing, particularly I think in a girl, to sort of protect that little bubble where they think, no, I'm doing things my way and I know exactly what I'm doing and I'm going to show you. And I think it's really easy to sort of crush that, and obviously like just sort of protecting that without throttling them, I think is a really important important thing. And I really hope she sort of carries it through her whole life. You know, there'll be things that are difficult and she'll get knockbacks, but if she has that sort of central core of, you know, actually this is what I'm going to do. And her lessons are often the easiest actually, because I prepare for everybody, but she'll, you know, I'll prepare for her and she'll be like, no, I know exactly what I'm doing today, this is what we're doing. And so I'll just follow her lead and she'll come up with great stuff to do. But I can imagine a time and a place, and probably now in plenty of places, that not being the way, you know, children. And obviously in a big group it's different and you have to have some balance with everything. But yeah, I just wonder if more children were allowed to sort of have that space to dictate their own learning.
I did think after we spoke last week, and remember somebody asked me about illustration and fine art. And I did think there is something I'd like to say on that, which I didn't say. And that is, the real difference is an illusion, but the real difference is the concept that you're doing what you want on the one hand, and you're doing what you're told on the other. That is kind of like the difference that the world perceives. So for people who say, I'm an illustrator and I love it, that's fine. That means you're doing what you want. But to me, the trick is to make sure you're always doing what you want, because that's the only way you'll do your best work in the end. Learning disciplines that are hard and you want to give up on and all that kind of stuff, yes, that's important too. But in the end, doing what you want is a critical element.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard an interesting quote. Apparently it was, oh, I can't remember the name, someone at Sotheby's was asked what the difference between art and design was. And he said, art causes a problem and a design fixes it. So I didn't put it, he put it better, or yes. Maybe I'm totally misquoting, but the idea that you design to resolve a gap, a problem, and fix it, and art asks questions and causes, you know, these less.
I do both, and I would describe the differences art is something you can, by and large, do entirely on your own. And one of the core skills in design is giving enough information so that someone else can do it. So you don't design a building so you can go out and build it. You design a building so builders, plumbers, electricians, engineers can build it. So you put all the information into it. So design is about coming up with an idea and communicating it indirectly. Whereas art is something you can come up with an idea and execute it in its final form. So in the mechanics of it, that's a big difference. And I would say a lot of design creates problems. So I wouldn't go that philosophical route personally. I'd like to have heard what he said, but to me, it's the big difference in the doing is you have to be able to communicate when you're designing with someone else. And they have to be able to do exactly what you intend. So your drawing might be simple. We learned something when we would design a chair and we put all the correct measurements in. So the drawing was all correct measurements, but you never take a measurement by measuring the drawing. You always take the measurement from the note. So if it said 18 inches, you cut your piece of timber 18 inches. You don't measure the
saying
drawing.
that, but then where do people like my students fit in? Where I say to them, okay, I want you to design and come up with a character, and then we'll 3D mold it and get it printed out. They can't 3D mold it. They're not doing the measurements. They're just doing a drawing. Are they not designers?
That's design, yeah.
Yeah, but they're not, you know, communicating information to anyone other than what something looks like, the sense of...
They're more likely to be disappointed in the outcome because they can't fully specify it. But nevertheless, that's what they're doing. They're communicating, I want this. One of the things we learned very early on is that a good sketch is not enough. It doesn't contain enough information for an exact replica of your idea to be manufactured. And learning to give not only the manufacturing information, but also to give an idea to your client about what it might end up looking like. These are two aspects of design. It's all about communication. Design is about internal stuff, having the idea, then communicating it via a variety of media. Art is pretty much what you make.
Okay, we need to get through some more of these questions, Ted.
Go on then.
Well, actually, on that subject, so we got a reply from the person who originally asked the question, Jerry Moran. Thanks guys for answering my question on art versus illustration. I guess the debate will always persist. I was wondering if it's okay for me to remain a passionate and inspired illustrator rather than a frustrated artist. Yes, that's fine, Jerry.
Yes.
That sounds like a laugh. Carry on. I don't know what, I mean, I don't remember exactly what we said about this, but I don't know how clear the line is necessarily between those two things.
There isn't a clear line. Absolutely isn't. Rembrandt, possibly and arguably one of the greatest artists the world has ever seen, was unambiguously an illustrator.
I don't know, I mean, like...
The same.
Huh?
Michelangelo, the same.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's ever, I've talked about this before, I don't know if it's ever happened to me as strongly or as sort of emotionally, powerfully, that looking at a piece of artwork and just suddenly understanding why people do it and just think it was the most incredible thing that I'd ever seen. And Earth is, you know, there's not just more things in heaven and earth, they're right here and visible, was when I saw Botticelli's Primavera. I just thought that was, and technically that's an illustration. That's a picture of what's her face in the woods, Primavera, with the nymphs hanging out. It's just a really big one in oil paint. But one of the most amazing things I'd ever seen. And you know, you still get those kind of moments with art, but I think, yeah, that was the first big one for me. And yeah, where do you draw the line?
Well, the thing I would say is you can't have great art without great craftsmanship.
Mm. David Bagsby asks, would Rick Wakeman make an appearance on your interview segments or Richard Branson via Zoom?
Could ask.
Yeah, I mean, guys, if you want people, ask me, because I'm the one. Although there's some people that Dad can get in contact much more easily than I can, but generally speaking, I found if it wasn't me doing the running around, these wouldn't happen. So put in names, and we'll give it a go.
Sadly true. Rick and I actually did 2 evenings live of talking at Trading Boundaries, actually. And we did them, and they were filmed. The issue is trying to prize the film out of people.
Well, we can put those up, definitely.
If we can get them, we can, yeah.
Okay. Yes, so let's find another very good question. So yeah, well, these are some comments on the last video that we did. Freya's comments on competition between children, and especially the bit about an older child who is more advanced, undermining the confidence of the younger child, is such an interesting insight. Thank you, Des. I've seen exactly the same thing apply in workshops with adult students learning painting or drawing from a high-profile known artist. Invariably, the workshop will run at a given speed, and some artists will go faster and some slower than the median speed. And some people simply get left behind, or seeing other better work of others will become disenchanted with their own. The potential for the workshop to turn into a defeating experience is very real. That's from Des Embry. I hope I'm saying your name right. I thought I'd mention that because you're doing these courses, and it's a thing, isn't it? Like, the idea is that sort of anyone can join at any level, but managing people not feeling too self-conscious, putting their work in front of others that they might think. It's a tricky one, isn't it?
It's a tricky one, but I would like to think, and it did seem in the end to work, that people of all abilities seem to do okay in it. I don't know. It seems to me that people with less experience are easier to teach because it's easier to take them into a space where they can see progress, whereas someone with a lot of experience, they will see less progress inevitably. If you're going to teach someone for an hour and they've only ever done an hour, you double their amount of experience. If they've done 10,000 hours, another hour is an infinitesimal small increment in their knowledge.
I completely agree.
I would definitely say one of the things that happened with our first course is there was a lot of interaction, very supportive interaction amongst the different students who were there. And I think that made the course work much better, actually. That was really good. I was incredibly grateful for the supportive nature of the other students. Yeah. It's something which...
Is that something that you can have some control over, so that people allow the supportive atmosphere to circumvent whatever hesitations they might have in comparing themselves to other people?
In all honesty, I don't know to what degree my intervention was critical. I think it was a lovely group and we were very lucky.
Mm.
But there is a saying, you make your luck. So I think it's a manageable situation. Yeah.
Mm. You can definitely easily make it terrible.
Yes. Well, weirdly, a lot of art is taught in what I can only describe as a very abusive manner. You know, like training camp in the army. You know, you break down somebody, you humiliate them, and then you build them up. I don't see that as effective. I think there's two things with teaching art. One is skill, which is down to practice, and one is information. The information bit is small compared to the practice bit. So you need to encourage the practice bit.
I mean, and the other thing is, learning from someone showing you how to do something is so boring. I had a lesson today.
You mustn't say that.
No, but just as an example, I had a lesson today with a girl and we were doing something really quite complicated online together. And I was showing her how to do it and I was putting the camera up and doing that. And basically, she was so polite and lovely. She didn't say anything, but in what she did next was a kind of pointed, okay, got you, just let me get on with it now, please. Because what she did was she sort of was looking at me and going, and she'd made 10 of the things I'd showed her how to do in one go. You know, I was showing her how to do this thing and she'd gone on to make a bunch. And so that's really what I think people just want to know, okay, tell me how to do it. Okay, now let me get on and do it. Is the best way, I guess, of...
Yeah. I would say, I would hope that we have mixed ability classes because I think that works, from my point of view, I think that works very well. I had such a brilliant experience teaching. I didn't expect to enjoy it half as much as I did. And half of the enjoyment was that mixed ability and seeing somebody gain confidence and get working.
Yeah, and looking at the work by the end compared to at the beginning. But also, like, what I really loved, because I was behind the camera, and Christabel will have that experience, I guess, this time, is, you know, they ask you questions in the live lesson while you're showing them. But then what will also happen is one of the other students might jump in if they know it. So if someone says, oh, how do you do this? One of the other students, if I didn't get to the question quick enough, would just go, oh, you just need to do this, just get this bit, and they're like, oh, okay, cool, thanks. And then, you know, then you just carry on. And that was really nice as well. And we've got some of the same students going into the second course from the first course. So any prospective students, it's going to be pretty nice again. It's going to be a good bunch again.
Oh, well, that's lovely.
Yeah.
What's your next question?
Yeah, so this question is from, I'm so sorry I cut your name out when I screenshotted this. I'll find it in a second. With regards to your future podcasts, seeing as you're in Japan, Freya, how about inviting someone from Studio Ghibli? Does Hayao Miyazaki have any autistic children you could interview? So actually, oh wait, I don't know if I should talk about this recorded or... Well, I talked to someone today about getting in touch and a couple of other Japanese people as well. But that was something that is, there's going to be a few people I want to talk to or get you to talk to, Dad. But we're going to have to do it with a translator. So we're going to have to... Sort of...
You should do the talk because you don't need a translator.
Right. Yeah, right, yeah. So we'll have to figure out how to go about that. But yeah, Yeah, I'd love to get some people from here as well, because apart from anything else, I mean, you'll see when we publish the videos, Japan is something that comes up a lot, as we said before.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I should say half the talk with Steve Hackett is about the aesthetics of Japan.
Yeah, and the way that they do things, I think maybe particularly people that you know, whether it's in music or art, there's a kind of method, the dough that
Mm.
that's done here with everything that I think has been a big influence on makers everywhere.
I thought, I have said it lots of times, so that's nothing new. I learned as much about art through doing kendo as I did in art school, because it's very much about training the body and training the mind via training the body. And it articulates it much better than it is in art teaching. So it was fascinating for me, that process.
So maybe it would be good to get someone in martial arts. I mean, I suppose the people I was thinking of were, you know, Miyazaki and maybe Murakami.
Mm.
Um, yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see what I can manage over here.
Yeah.
Notes in the comments about anyone you'd like. I'm going to give it all a go. Yeah, we had a question from Adrian MG53. Have either of you exhibited at the Royal Academy Summer Exhibition? If not, would you consider trying one day?
I've not exhibited at the Academy Summer Exhibition. I've never tried. I have had some of my furniture exhibited at the Royal Academy, obviously not in the summer exhibition, but in a special exhibition they did. Same piece of furniture supposed to be at the Victoria and Albert Museum as well. Yes, I'm not against it, but I haven't been singularly motivated to do it either. So we'll see.
I'm not against it either, so if you're watching, call me. I'm well. John Morales said, Sean Ono Lennon may not be an obvious choice, but he is the son of professional artists, musicians who's carried on in those professions. And in all the interviews I've heard, he's able to speak on a wide range of topics in a thoughtful and gracious manner. I'm sure it would be engaging to hear the three of you discourse on the habitability or lack thereof of the modern city and how it can be improved. It seems it is a topic about which he has also expressed concern. Mm-hmm. Plus, I think he would keep up well with the two of you as you wander through the garden of subjects as you do. That would be amazing. That would be amazing, because he could speak to two very prescient subjects for me, being the child of a creative and, you know, the Japan stuff.
I've got a thing across my screen. Now it's gone. But you didn't see it, hopefully.
No.
I think, yes. I think probably we shouldn't treat these as questions, these ideas for people we should talk to. We should investigate them before we go to the question and then come back to the questioner.
Okay. Right, sorry. I've got a good question here, but for some reason, as I sometimes do, I screenshot a really strange part of it. But okay, so here we go. This question is from David Bagsby. I think this is going to have to be our last question. A strong sense of narrative design is in a majority of your work, all that I have seen actually. Have you ever considered experimenting with vague atmospheres? I think artists call it a color study. Your backgrounds are highly beautiful gradients and clouds. A lot of the major impressionists had vision issues which influenced their work, so this would be more of an international vacation from your comfort zone. Oh, an intentional vacation from your comfort zone, sorry. Likely never to be seen by anyone else and possibly to end up as a cyclorama for future Yes project. When you transition from detailed drawing to painting, you mentioned the choreographic techniques needed for works like Electric Sheep. Maybe not something so drastic as Pollock, but perhaps something that would open a new path. No disrespect intended. You could continue on forever on your current trajectory and the world would be a better place. One inspirational thing of your lectures is your openness to experiment. You mentioned at the first broadcast that these are magical times to reconsider direction, and that is absolutely true. So, yeah.
What's the question?
Yeah, so when you transition from detailed drawing to painting, you mentioned the choreographic techniques needed for works like Electric Sheep. Maybe not something so drastic as Pollock, but perhaps something that would open a new path.
Yes. What happens when I put a texture down is a number of things. It gives me something to work against. It's sometimes very successfully embodied in the final painting, sometimes less so. I think it's one of the factors that give the impression that the finished painting has a lot more detail than it really does. And I do enjoy that stage of a painting. I don't always do it, but when I do it, I love doing it. And that is, I'm making a work of art, in my view, but then I know it will not be there. It's going to be hidden. And I love that too. I love the fact that it's going to be a secret painting. It's going to be partially, or, you know, a very large part of it's going to be painted out. I don't really know how to answer your question, because whereas I was very interested in what you had to say and felt myself agreeing with you, I didn't identify the exact question.
Good question. Let us know for next time what it was. That's what you're saying, I guess. So we are going to have to wrap up because I've got to get out of here. By the way, if you've noticed, everyone, I'm somewhere different. This is our gallery at Courtyard Hiro. And this sofa is a Zaha Hadid sofa. I don't really know anything about it on the video, but it's cool.
Right. It sounds harder there than usual. It's got a very bright, concretey sound.
Yeah. We've got some great furniture in here though. Let me just see. This. Let me show you this. So this is a lady. This is a lady's body with the legs and these bits up here. And this is her baby. Isn't that cool?
Do you know who designed that?
Can I design it? No. Can't remember. But we're just looking it up. Yeah. So was there anything else that we needed to say? course. Podcast coming up next week is going to be the first one. And I think that's everything.
We're going to add a little bit to this Q&A before it goes live by a talk about materials, and that's going to happen in a couple of hours.
Yeah, so everyone keeps asking about materials, including the students for our next course. So we're going to do a little introduction to the materials used in the next course. And for anyone who isn't joining, but would just like to know what materials Dad uses, like pens, pencils, watercolours, paper, you can watch that too. And hopefully that can be a sort of easy go-to for anyone who wants to know what Dad uses.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you everyone very much. Gaetano Pesce. Sorry, I'm just getting the name of the designer.
Italia Art.
Gaetan Pesce. Gaetan Pesce. Do you know that? Oh, Gaetano. There you go. That's who did the mother and baby chair. Right.
Now, have you got an exhibition of furniture there?
So at the moment it's the owner's private collection, which on the third floor we're doing 2 months of it, and this month is including some furniture as well.
So not including a sea urchin chair?
No, more fool him. But having said that, you sold all of them. I want one too.
Yes, well, they've all ended up in museums, all the ones I had.
Well, get on with making more.
Will do. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. If you want questions next week, we're not going to be doing questions next week. We're going to be uploading the talk between Dad, and it's going to be Steve Hackett next week. Is that right?
Yeah, but I'm not sure we shouldn't still do the Q&As, but we'll talk about that later.
But what I'm thinking we do is Q&A, Dad interview with somebody, Q&A, Dad interview with somebody. So I'm trying not to overwork Dad, as he's always complaining about it. And I do feel like twice a week is quite a lot. So I think we're going to kind of caterpillar the interviews and the Q&As, which will also give us time to get plenty of good interviews in without having to hurry. Are you off? All right.
Saying goodbye. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody. I'm just going to stop recording. You stay there, Dad. Bye, everyone.